I've not been the most positive person about Pokémon as a franchise lately. Considering the state that Scarlet and Violet launched in and the lack of any major performance patches, I feel like it's somewhat justified. But even I have to admit that I'm excited about Pokémon Legends ZA, which is set to launch in 2025. My hype for Legends ZA has manifested in different ways. I've been collecting the cards again, working towards a shiny living dex, and even rewatching the old movies. By the way, the Lugia movie isn't that good. I'm sorry, but it's just true.
You need to leave!
While doing this, I remembered an old promotional manga that I was always interested in, and after reading it, I think it deserves more attention than it's currently getting, which is none. So I wanted to take this opportunity to tell you about Pokémon Reburst, the manga that Pokémon left behind. Pokémon Reburst was featured in Weekly Shonen Sunday, with its first chapter releasing on March 9th, 2011, and its final chapter releasing on October 10th, 2012. With the manga's debut being close to the Western release of Pokémon Black and White, and only featuring Pokémon from Unova, Reburst seems like a promotional tie-in manga intended to generate more hype around the 5th generation of Pokémon. The manga was written by Jin Kusade, who I can't find any other works for, and illustrated by Mitsuhisa Tamura, who also worked on future card Shin Buddy Fight. When people think of Pokémon, manga probably isn't one of the things that springs to mind. No, they'll think of the video games, the card game,
I'm big fat gay Pikachu!
the anime, the movies, the plushes, the brief stint of world peace in 2016, or the life-size Clodsire plush with a mouth that you can put your head inside. And while manga is a part of Pokémon's repertoire, the series that gets the most attention is Pokémon Adventures, a manga spanning across every region in the mainline game series, featuring things like Mewtwo fighting Deoxys with a giant spoon, and Rayquaza straight up trying to kill Zinnia. But barely anyone talks about the other manga runs like Reburst, or the one where Red has a talking Clefairy who I could imagine being voiced by Danny DeVito.
I got my Magnum condoms, I got my Water Hundreds, I'm ready to plow.
And after reading Reburst, I think it deserves to be remembered as part of the franchise's history. First of all, it's difficult to talk about this manga without addressing the elephant in the room: Pokémon Fusion. Within the world of Pokémon Reburst, there are people known as Burst Warriors, who are able to combine with Pokémon through an item called the Burst Heart. So rather than having their Pokémon participate in the cockfights the series is known for, Burst Warriors fuse with their Pokémon and throw hands like gentlemen. While people still use Pokeballs and have Pokémon as their partners, the story's primary focus is on the Burst Warriors. This mechanic doesn't cause the series to devolve into mindless fighting, as the type advantages and other Pokémon characteristics still apply here. So when the main character tries to hit an Excadrill Burst Warrior with an electric attack, it doesn't work. And someone with the Zoroark Burst Heart is able to transform themselves into other people using their illusion ability. Now this wouldn't be a Pokémon story without some kind of evil team that needs to be stopped by a literal child. And the organisation featured in Pokémon Reburst is Great Gavel, or GG. They share some traits with other teams like stealing Pokémon, capturing towns, oppressing the weak, you know, the usual. But their other activities are specific to the world of the manga, with them developing artificial burst hearts to create their own burst warriors, and even managing to capture some legendary Pokémon in the process. The protagonist of the story is Ryoga, a boy with incredible strength who uses the burst heart containing the legendary Pokémon Zekrom. He's pretty much your run-of-the-mill shonen protagonist who doesn't give up and wants to become the strongest man in the world. The manga follows Ryoga as he travels across the world to find Arcades, a mysterious figure with ties to Ryoga's missing father. Throughout his journey, he forms a group of friends including a girl called Miruto, a reporter called Yappy who looks like a pansage so people keep mistaking him for a burst warrior, an Excelgar burst warrior called Karuto who experiences literal character growth, and a Purloin burst warrior called Rug. While on his journey to find Arcades, Ryoga saves Pokemon and people in trouble, fights other burst warriors, and develops his own abilities as he learns more about Zekrom's burst heart. And while having a group of friends is all well and good, I mean it is when they actually do something, Pokemon would be nothing without a good rival character. And Ryoga's rival is another burst warrior called either Harrel or Hariru. I saw two different translations while reading it, so I'm just going to call him Harrel because it's easier. Harrel is one of Great Gavel's 7 horsemen. You can think of them like admins. He wants revenge on Arcades for supposedly killing his dad. He makes use of a Zoroark burst heart to fight, and he looks like this.
I mean, he's fine, he's alright, Yeah, but why is he like that though, you know?
He clashes with Ryoga several times throughout the story, as their goals directly oppose one another. He also acts as a good indicator of Ryoga's growth as a burst warrior throughout the story. We see the main party take on a variety of situations, like a team of Great Gavel agents using Pokemon to fuel elemental weapons, a search for a miracle medicine on the top of a mountain, and a Burst Heart survival tournament featuring a gauntlet of challenges against other Burst warriors. Unfortunately, that's where the portion about the actual manga ends, because this is as far as I was able to get before I ran out of translated chapters to read. As of the date of recording, the chapters that are available online are the first 27 and the last 10, and with a manga that's 77 chapters long, it leaves a noticeable gap in the story. I decided to read everything that was available to me, so while I did miss out on a big portion of the story, I still enjoyed what was there. But I couldn't leave it there, so I decided to look further to see if I could find any of the missing chapters and find out what happened to this manga. Reburst was never officially translated into English or released in the West. The only physical copies were released in Japan, so the main way to read the manga outside of Japan is to read it online where fans have scanned, cleaned, translated, and uploaded the manga. I read Reburst on MangaDex, but that doesn't really matter as any other site I could find was also missing chapters 28 to 67. But at the end of chapter 69, I noticed that there were translation and scan cleaning credits for two individuals by the name of Blue Sun and Gonbei Fan, along with a URL for PokemonOriginals.org. Unfortunately, this led me nowhere, with the website being dead and the scan laters being unfindable. I even tried the URL with a Japanese and US VPN connection thanks to this video's sponsor, and even that didn't get the site to work. Moving on from this, I decided to check for information on mangaupdates.com, which listed 3 groups credited for scanning and translating the series: Uprod Scanlations, Reburst Productions, and Pokemon Originals, the site I visited earlier. Uprod Scanlations was listed as inactive, with both its Facebook page and website being inaccessible, and while they do have a Twitter account, their last tweet was in December 2012 and I couldn't DM them when I tried. And as for Reburst Productions, they were also listed as inactive, and the only link they had was to a website, which led me back to MangaDex, the site I've been reading the manga on from the start. The last upload from Reburst Productions was by a user called Nero Zidal, whose history shows them having uploaded chapters 11 to 24 over the past 3 years. The chapters uploaded by Nero Zidal went from chapter 24 to 68, carried on to the end of the manga, and then the next upload was chapter 27 in February of this year. Hopefully this means that Nero Zidal will continue uploading chapters, but with their previous pace being a chapter every month, the recent 3-month gap doesn't bode well. Pokemon Reburst is a really fun read with a lot of interesting concepts and some awesome character designs. While some may consider it to be a bland run-of-the-mill shonen battle manga, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. This manga is largely a promotional tie-in for a video game, and if it's enjoyed by people who've only played the games or watched the anime, it opens up a whole new world of entertainment and stories for them. So yes, the structure and characters of Reburst are pretty basic when compared to other manga runs, but that makes it a great jumping on point. However, I will say that there's a lot more fan service than you might be accustomed to coming from the games and current state of the series. Back in the day, we had James flaunting his bombastic Team Rocket brand tits, but now we've seen the franchise take a turn in a more advertiser and child-friendly direction, so it's something to remember going into the manga, but never forget what they took from you. Due to the current state of the manga and its availability, I feel like it's difficult to properly recommend to anyone. I'm also not going to give the manga a concrete score out of 10 because I feel like it would be unfair, as I wasn't able to experience everything the story had to offer. I've left out the major plot points to avoid spoiling it for anyone who's still interested in reading it, and also because I didn't really get to see a lot of plot points due to the missing 40 chapters. I hope the translations continue being posted so that this story isn't left behind, but I guess only time will tell.